It's been a while since we did an update on the lithium battery and the inverter and the battery monitoring system that we had installed back in early July. So I thought I'd just run through how we're getting on with it. So we had it installed on the 3rd of July pretty much. It took a couple of days to do and get right, and we had a little trip over to the Sterling Power warehouse to get a new sort of DC to DC, battery to battery charger. But since then, I think a month in, we did a little update, and we were pretty pleased with the whole system. But the thing about it is that it takes a little bit of getting used to. Now, my approach and our approach was to treat the lithium battery as an electric hookup cable. I know there's only when you're on a hookup cable, there's an unlimited amount of power that you can use, so you can keep on taking from the grid and you can keep on using more and more power. Whereas with the battery, you've got effectively a box of power, and when it runs out, it runs out, and you need to refill the box, as it were. So that's how the lithium battery works, and it works a lot better with the inverter than the old lead acid batteries. And we had three 100 amp hour lead acid batteries that we'd bought that sort of performed okay, but they would really struggle if we wanted to use those batteries with an inverter in the same way that we would an electric hookup. And that's what we were trying to get to. We were trying to get to a position where it would just feel like we were on electric hookup all of the time, and be almost completely self-sufficient, or as much as possible. And we've been from July through August in the UK, and then traveling through September and November up to Sweden, and now down into France and Spain. What I can say is that the additional solar panel that we had put on, the 200 watt 24 volt solar panel that we had put on the back roof of the van, has been absolutely stunningly good. It really does work much better in comparison to the 100 watt 12 volt panel that we have at the front. And when I say it works better, you'd say, well, yeah, because it's like twice as many watts, isn't it? It's 200 watt and a 100 watt. It's bound to work better. But when you compare it for the amount of power that it actually gives out in terms of voltage and amps, the 200 watt 24 volt is more efficient and more effective than the 100 watt 12 volt. Now, I'm no electrical expert, and I don't really understand completely how it works, but I think I'm right in saying there's a thing called open circuit voltage, which basically means how much voltage is the solar panel producing out of the two wires that come out of it without going through any sort of regulation. And the 24 volt, weirdly, produces like nearly 40 volts, which sounds a bit weird, but that's the open circuit. So it's, when it's in full sunshine, I've seen it producing sort of 38 volts on the battery monitoring, because it, you know, we can see all that sort of stuff. And the 12 volt produces something like 17 volts. So I know it's only a little bit, but if you doubled 17, you get 34, and you get 39 or 40 out of the 200 watt. So you're just getting that little extra bit of power. But when you convert all that down for the same amount of sunshine, you know, if you've got the sunshine up, they're both getting pretty much the same. You'd think the 200 watt would get twice as much amps as the 100 watt, but it doesn't. It gets a bit more, just a bit more, like maybe 10 or 20% more power is coming in through the 24 volt. So if I had a choice, I would definitely replace that 100 watt with a 24 volt panel, because it's just more efficient. It just produces a bit more power. But what I can say is today, and we're at a place called La Boulou, or La Boulou in France. It's near the border to Spain. It's our last stop in France before we get to Spain. So we'll be going across the border in the next day or so. And we've had, it's pretty cold overnight. I mean, it does get pretty cold, but we've had a nice, clear, sunny day today. And for most of the day, I've had I've taken a day to sort of do a lot of sort of IT type work, researching a little project I've got going and stuff like that. So I've had the inverter on. So bearing in mind it's a 3 kVA inverter, so pretty much in layman's terms 3000 watt inverter. So I've had my laptop plugged in, other bits and pieces plugged in, all sorts of electrical equipment going, and the sunshine today just off the solar panels has been increasing the amount of percentage battery that we've got. So today, this morning, it was at 61%. By the time I've switched the inverter off for the evening, because we don't really use it in the evening, we're at 71%. So the sunshine today, just on 300 watts of solar, and it's not really strong sun, it's put 10% back into the battery. So those solar panels have really worked well, and I'm sort of expecting that to improve when we start to get that direct overhead sun for longer periods. So it's worked really well. What I can show you is the Victron Connect, which is on the phone. At the moment, the sun's sort of gone beyond the tree, so we're not really getting much in. We've got a couple of bits and pieces plugged in to the electric, and let me just grab a I'll just grab a screenshot of what I'm seeing. I'll put that on screen now. So it's minus, so power coming out of the battery is just short of an amp, so nearly 3/4 of an amp, and it says that we've got one day 17 hours or so. What does that actually say? So let's just tell you, yeah, one day 17 hours, and we're at 69%. So using that overnight, and we don't use that much. When we turn the lights on, we maybe drop to pulling about 2 or 3 amps. And we've got lights on, phones being charged up, iPads being charged up. And what I can say is that when we've got the inverter on, the inverter takes about 2 amps, I think. So, just with nothing else on, the inverter will sap the power out of the battery. So 2 amps, we've got a 200 amp hour battery. So you'd think, well, 2 amps times 100, 200, right? So about 80 hours, or about 90 hours maybe, that we could run the inverter with nothing else. No point in doing that, but that's to give you an idea how that works. So for every 1 amp that you run for 1 hour, that's 1 amp hour. So what we have seen over time, though, is that if we turn the inverter off pretty much as soon as we know we're not going to need it, maybe turn it back on if we do, then the battery will last a lot longer. And I know that's pretty obvious, but I didn't really expect the inverter just to continually take power when we weren't doing anything else. I thought we'd be able to leave it switched on, and for it to maybe use a few amps a day, but actually it uses a lot. I've left it switched on, pretty much with nothing else switched on overnight. So we might be in bed for 8, 9, 10 hours. So let's say 10 hours at 2 amps. That's going to be 20 amp hours. That's 10% of the battery capacity. And then if we've got other things on, like if we've got a fan running for the heater, or any lights on, or phones or iPads on charge, that couple of amps could go up to 4, 5 or 6 amps for 10 hours. And then 10 hours times 6 amps, that's going to be 60 amp hours. That's a third, like 30% of the battery capacity. And when you start to think about those sorts of power drains and those sort of capacities, you start to sort of realize that you do still need to think about how all of that is going to work and run, especially overnight when there's no sunshine and your solar panels are not putting power back in. Now, I'm really keen on solar panels, so we've got 2 on the roof, and I was going to get rid of the portable one, but I've decided to keep it and wire it into the system, so that if we're in a place, if we're on a campsite for any length of period, I can just pop it out and get a bit more push. Now that's another 100 watt panel, so that'll mean I have 400 watts of solar going in. But the portable one is way more efficient and effective because it's angled towards the sun, and I sort of move it around during the day as the sun tracks across. So I think when we get into a campsite where we go on these rallies, we're going to be settled in a place for a few weeks or a couple of months. That additional solar panel will really give us a big boost in terms of putting power back in. We've also had 1 or 2 issues with the Sterling DC battery-to-battery charger, but I think suffice to say that I think it decided to lose its settings from time to time. I've had to reset it to the lithium profile twice now in the last 3-4 months, which is a bit annoying, you know, because it's down underneath the sofa, and it's a bit not really that accessible because it's sort of hidden down, and you've got to push 2 buttons and sort of reset the things. But what I can say is when it resets, and you know, when we drive for you know, maybe we're an hour, 2-3 hours between sites, which we have been coming down through France, it actually pushes about 40 amps, 45 amps sometimes from the alternator into the battery. So if we drive for 1 hour, we've put 40 amps back into the battery. So that really boosts it up. We drive for 2 hours, we put 80 amps back in, 3 hours, 120 amps. And bearing in mind it's a 200 amp hour, so if we drive for 4 hours, the battery will go from 20% to 100% on that journey. So if we're down, I mean, the thing about lithium batteries is that they don't necessarily have to be charged up to 100% all the time, and that's one of the great things that I really like about it. It'll perform as if it's full until it's not, until it's like down to its last bit. So I really like that, because it does make it feel like we're on electric hookup all of the time. The other really annoying thing is that there's an on-off switch, which is right underneath the lounge sofa. So I have to sort of lay down, reach into the cupboard, up over the inverter because it's on the top, and switch it. And if I'd known that, and if I'd really thought about it, I would have had, while they were installing the whole thing, I'd have said, right, I want a remote switch up in the cupboard as well, because you know they have remote switching capability, and I'd put a remote switch in so that we could actually switch it on as when we need it. So you know, but I tend to switch it on sort of mid-morning so that the laptop gets charged up, and the phones and the iPads get that extra boost in power from 230 volt, because they do charge faster that way, and then sort of switch it off sort of early evening so that we're not sapping power that we don't when we don't need to, and then go through that sort of routine every day. If we want to charge up phones and iPads, we've just got the USB sockets. I think I need to install some more of those, but that's another story, and we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, my final thoughts on the whole system are that it is massively brilliant. It really is. 200 amp hour lithium battery. They're really expensive. That's just, I mean, 200 amp hours is just short of £2,000. Yeah, £2,000. So 100 amp hour is about half that price, so £1,000. So it's, you know, it's a lot of money, but that battery, given that it's rated for 5,000 cycles at 50% depth of discharge. So if you take 100 amp hours out of it, charge it up, and again, that it will do that for at least 5,000 times, which is an awful lot. Now it drops to 2,500 times if you take it from 100% down to 20%. So, and I think we're doing that more than taking it to 50%. So given that it's 2,500 times, and I can tell you that the battery as it stands right now, and I'm just waiting for this to come back on. I'll look at the history. So July, August, September, October, that's 4 months, 4.5 months. We've had 24 charge cycles. So if we had 2,400, we got 2,400, yeah, 2,400 is what I'm allowing. 2,500 is what I'm allowing. So we've got 100 times what we've already used. So that's 100 times 4 months, whatever that is. It's a lot. It's years, 20 years at least. So I'm really, really happy with the battery. The inverter is it's pretty much an invisible piece of kit. I think it was about £800. So it's an inverter, so at 3 kVA, almost 3,000 watts. So it'll run pretty much anything. It doesn't matter. It's pure sine wave, but it also has a battery charger in. So when we plug into electric hookup, which we sort of intend to maybe every 4 to 6 weeks, just to give the battery a bit of a boost and a conditioning, if you like. It has that charger built in as well, and that pushes about 100 amps into the battery. So the amount of power going in, if we if it's on for an hour, it'll just push 100 amps in, really give it a really good solid charge up, and give it a bit of a boost, if you like, which is really good, I think. To do that, it recommends that you should fully charge it up about every month. So we'll do that. We're not too fixed on that, but that's about what we'll do. And that battery will last us forever. There are some other components in the system, but I think I've gone on for long enough. So what I'll do is I'll just leave it there, and I'll come back to you with a sort of list and a full explanation of what all the bits of kit are in the system, and why we've got them, and what I think's missing. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that little run through of what our sort of off-grid solar powered lithium system is like. And if you have, please give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to continue to follow our full-time life journey in this motorhome. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye bye for now.